Hey guys, welcome to a quick ranking. To celebrate the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die, I thought I'd rank the 6 James Bond actors. In my opinion, yes, of course. Everyone has their James Bond. It's like everyone has their Batman and their Spider-Man and stuff. Everyone has like their personal favorite James Bond actor and their franchises they're in and stuff. So um, I'm mostly judging them, obviously, based off of the actor's performance of James Bond and their James Bond character. I'm not specifically talking about their movies, I'm just talking about them and their portrayal of James Bond. So let's get to it. Coming at number 6 is Roger Moore. I know a lot of people, well, I'd say a lot of people, some people consider him the best. He's probably like the most like guilty pleasure Bond. He does a lot of the goofy Bond movies, and he's more of like the over the top Bond. He's got the over the top gadgets, and yeah, like, and I give a lot of respect for Roger Moore, is because Roger Moore did the most Bond films, I think. Well, if you count Sean Connery's Never Say Never Again. No, I still think Roger Moore did the most. Yeah, but yeah, Roger Moore did Bond relatively well, especially in like certain films like Live and Let Die and stuff. I liked Roger Moore, but there's a lot of cheesiness to his performance, and he just didn't have as much charm or charisma as the other Bonds. So yeah. Number 5 is Pierce Brosnan. I really loved Pierce Brosnan and GoldenEye, and I love this new Bond they were doing, and they're trying to go for a more real Bond, like a realistic Bond, and they just kind of lost sight of that after GoldenEye. If he only did GoldenEye, maybe he would have been a great Bond, or like if the movies were just as good as GoldenEye. But I still like Pierce Brosnan. I think Pierce Brosnan's a very charismatic actor, and he gives a good performance as Bond in relatively all the Bond films he's in. But yeah, just he just went so downhill after GoldenEye that just can't put him any better on the list. But he's still better than Roger Moore, in my opinion. So yeah. Number 4 is George Lazenby. The reason it's fair to put him at 4 for me is that yes, he only did one Bond movie, but the one Bond movie he did was great. On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a spectacular film. It's one of my favorite Bond movies. It's got the best ending. It's got the best Bond girl. Great action. Great set pieces. It's just such an iconic James Bond movie. And I really enjoyed George Lazenby's performance. But he did one James Bond film. So it's hard to judge him. If he maybe would have done just one other one, maybe I could put him maybe higher or maybe even lower on the list. Like, I don't know, but he did one film. I kind of respect him, but at the same time, these other 3, they just did a bit more movies than he did, and just they're just the type of James Bond I like. So yeah. Number 3 is Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is probably most people's favorite Bond because he's the most fleshed out Bond. He's the Bond that's closer to the books, and he's got more character, and that's why I do like Daniel Craig's Bond. It's because the Daniel Craig Bond shows a lot more vulnerability and shows more depth in his relationships, and like I actually appreciate that more. The reason I don't have him at number 1 is because I find sometimes Daniel Craig, especially in the early ones, even though the early ones are like my favorites, he's very brooding a lot, and sometimes he lacks certain emotions and stuff, and just kind of takes away from the character. But I still think Daniel Craig, as a whole, does a good job, except in Spectre. I don't know what the fuck was happening in that movie, but still, Daniel Craig is a really great Bond. So yeah, he's a lot of people's favorites for good reason. Number 2, Sean Connery. Sean Connery is the very first James Bond, and he's another one. He's most people's favorites. Out of the classic era, everyone says Sean Connery. And out of the modern era, everyone says Daniel Craig. So surprised by number 1 is neither one of them. But I love Sean Connery. I love like Goldfinger, Doctor No, From Russia with Love, Thunderball. Like he does great Bond films. I even have a soft spot for Diamonds Are Forever. He is the most charming James Bond. He's so classy. He's just so badass. He's just so cool. And something about that, like he is out of every Bond, out of all the James Bonds, Sean Connery is the most iconic and he's the most charming. And he just has this certain charisma about him that no Bond has. And that's why I love Sean Connery. That is why he's my second favorite. And he is probably one of the best Bonds ever. But he's not my personal favorite. My personal favorite is Timothy Dalton as James Bond. And it's weird because he only did two films, The Living Daylights and License to Kill, which are both of my like top 10 favorite Bond films. The Living Daylights, the most underrated Bond film, great film. License to Kill, super, super cool film. Second favorite, I think. I love Timothy Dalton. He is the more like dark and gritty James Bond, and I think he's a very layered character, especially in his two films. It's because his two films were so dark and so violent that they had to switch the James Bonds out. This is like Batman Returns all over again, but I loved Dalton's Bond. He was my favorite. He's always been my favorite. He's the one I grew up with, and still to this day, I love his Bond. I love that this is more of like a revenge Bond. This is more of a harsher Bond, and he's more of like just like shoot first, ask questions Bond. It's just such a different, unique Bond. It's darker and it's grittier, and I fucking love it. And Dalton just does the role so well, and just I know he's not like everybody's favorites, but he is definitely my favorite. So yeah, Timothy Dalton. So yeah, that's my ranking of all the James Bonds by their actors, the 6 actors. So on the comment section below, please tell me what is your ranking of all the James Bond actors. Let me know. Comment below, let me know. And as always, for this video, please subscribe to the channel and join the dark side.